What was it really like to wake up on a creaking wooden ship, surrounded by the endless expanse of ocean, knowing that today might be your last? How did pirates actually live, eat, sleep, and survive in one of history's most dangerous professions? What secrets lie beneath the romanticized legends of treasure maps and swashbuckling adventures? And what would it truly feel like to experience the brutal reality of life aboard a pirate vessel in the Golden Age of Piracy? Welcome back to another peaceful journey through history's forgotten corners. Before we set sail on this exploration, I'm curious, where are you checking in from tonight? What time is it where you are? Perhaps you're settling in for the evening, or maybe you're on the other side of the world, beginning your day. Wherever you are, you're part of our growing community of history enthusiasts who find comfort in these stories from the past. If you're finding value in these boring history stories, if they're helping you relax or learn something new, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Only do so if you truly enjoy these deep explorations into the past. Your support means everything to our small but passionate community. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What historical topic would you like us to explore next? Or simply check in and let us know you're here. Your presence and engagement are what make this community so special, and I'm grateful for your continued support. Before we begin our journey back to the early 1700s, you might want to turn down the lights, maybe put on a fan for some gentle background noise, and get comfortable. We're about to spend the next 2 hours exploring the real world of pirates, far from the Hollywood glamour and adventure stories. Tonight, we're stepping aboard a pirate ship during the Golden Age of Piracy, roughly between 1650 and 1730, when men like Blackbeard, Captain Kidd, and Bartholomew Roberts terrorized the seas. But we're not here for the legends or the treasure tales. We're here to experience what it was actually like to live, work, and survive as an ordinary member of a pirate crew. Why it sucked to be a common pirate. You wake to the sound of wood groaning and water slapping against the hull. The smell hits you before you're fully conscious, a nauseating mixture of human waste, rotting food, stagnant water, and unwashed bodies that have been confined together for weeks. Your hammock, if you're lucky enough to have one, is damp with seawater that constantly seeps through the ship's hull. More likely, you're sleeping on bare wooden planks in the hold, using a mouldy piece of canvas as both pillow and blanket. Your body aches from yesterday's work. Every muscle screams as you try to sit up in the cramped space that serves as your quarters. The ceiling is so low that you can't stand upright, and you share this miserable space with 30 or 40 other men, each bringing their own collection of lice, fleas, and diseases. The air is thick and barely breathable. Many of your shipmates are coughing, some violently, and you know that illness spreads quickly in these conditions. As a common pirate, you're at the bottom of the ship's hierarchy. You have no say in where the ship goes, what targets you attack, or how the spoils are divided. The captain and his officers live in relative luxury in the stern castle, while you're crammed into the forward sections of the ship with the rest of the crew. Your share of any treasure, if you're fortunate enough to capture any, will be a fraction of what the officers receive. The ship's bell rings, and you know it's time to begin another day of back-breaking labor. You stumble to your feet, your legs unsteady on the constantly moving deck. The ship never stops rocking, and after months at sea, many men develop a condition sailors call sea legs. But even then, the constant motion wears on your body and mind. Your first task is usually pumping the bilge. Every ship leaks, and pirate ships, often hastily repaired or captured vessels in poor condition, leak more than most. You and several other crew members take turns operating the heavy wooden pump handles, forcing the accumulated water back out to sea. It's exhausting work that must be done several times a day. If you stop, the ship will eventually sink, taking everyone down with it. The water you're pumping isn't clean seawater. It's a foul mixture that has collected debris, food scraps, human waste, and dead rats. The smell is overwhelming, and many men vomit while working the pumps, adding to the toxic soup they're trying to remove. Your hands, already calloused and cut from rope work, develop new blisters from the pump handles. After pumping duty, you might be assigned to sail handling. Pirate ships depend on their ability to move quickly, either to catch merchant vessels or to escape from naval warships. This means the sails must be constantly adjusted based on wind conditions. You spend hours climbing the rigging, sometimes in stormy weather, adjusting ropes and canvas high above the deck. The rigging work is terrifying. The ropes are often wet and slippery, and the ship's movement becomes more pronounced the higher you climb. One wrong step or a sudden gust of wind can send you plummeting to the deck or into the ocean. Pirates who fall overboard are rarely rescued. The ship can't easily stop and turn around, and sharks are a constant presence in these warm Caribbean waters. Your hands become permanently damaged from rope work. The rough hemp lines tear at your skin, leaving deep grooves and scars. Salt water keeps wounds from healing properly, and many pirates develop serious infections in their hands and arms. Some lose fingers to infected cuts or to accidents with the heavy blocks and tackles used to operate the sails. When you're not working the pumps or handling sails, you're assigned to maintenance duties. Pirate ships are constantly falling apart. The wooden hulls are attacked by shipworms in tropical waters, eating through the planking and weakening the structure. You spend hours scraping and patching holes, often working underwater, holding your breath while trying to hammer oakum and tar into gaps in the hull. The deck requires constant maintenance as well. The tropical sun splits and warps the wooden planks, and salt water corrodes everything metal. You're expected to scrape, sand, and reseal surfaces using whatever materials the ship has available. Often, this means improvising with supplies stolen from captured vessels. Food aboard a pirate ship is a constant source of misery. There's no way to keep food fresh during long voyages, so your diet consists mainly of hardtack, a rock-hard biscuit that's often infested with weevils and other insects. You learn to tap the hardtack against the table before eating it, hoping to knock out some of the bugs, but eventually you stop bothering. The protein from insects becomes a welcome addition to your meager diet. Salt pork and salt beef are the main sources of meat, but these are preserved in so much salt that they're barely edible. The meat is usually rancid by the time you eat it, and you develop chronic digestive problems from the poor food quality. Many pirates suffer from constant diarrhea, which creates additional health hazards in the ship's cramped quarters. Water is perhaps the most precious and problematic resource. Fresh water stored in wooden barrels quickly becomes stagnant and develops a green scum. You're often forced to drink water that tastes foul and contains visible particles of decay. The water barrels also become breeding grounds for mosquitoes and other insects. When fresh water runs low, you're forced to collect rainwater in whatever containers you can find. During storms, this means standing on deck getting battered by wind and rain while trying to catch water in buckets and pots. The collected water is often contaminated with salt spray, bird droppings, and debris from the rigging. Beer and rum are safer to drink than water, but they're carefully rationed. As a common crew member, your daily ration is small, barely enough to ease the constant thirst. Many pirates develop serious drinking problems, using alcohol to escape the misery of their daily existence. But this only leads to more health problems and dangerous behavior aboard ship. Personal hygiene is virtually impossible. There's no fresh water for washing, and privacy doesn't exist. You haven't had a proper bath in months, and your clothes are rotting on your body. Most pirates own only one set of clothing, which they wear until it literally falls apart. The constant exposure to salt water and tropical sun breaks down fabric quickly. Your teeth are probably falling out from scurvy, a disease caused by lack of vitamin C. Your gums are swollen and bleeding, and any remaining teeth are loose and painful. Many pirates lose most of their teeth by their 30s, making it even harder to eat the already terrible food available aboard ship. Skin diseases are common and often serious. The combination of poor nutrition, constant dampness, lack of washing, and close quarters with infected crew members means you're likely suffering from various rashes, boils, and fungal infections. Saltwater sores develop anywhere your clothing rubs against your skin, and these become infected easily. You're probably carrying multiple parasites. Intestinal worms are common, causing stomach pain and further malnutrition. Lice infest your hair and clothing, causing constant itching and spreading disease. Fleas and bedbugs make sleep difficult, and their bites often become infected from scratching. Disease spreads rapidly through the crew. Yellow fever, malaria, and typhus are constant threats in the Caribbean. When someone falls ill, there's little medical care available. The ship might have a surgeon, but he's often just another crew member with no real medical training. Treatment usually consists of bleeding, purging, or amputation, procedures that often do more harm than good. If you're seriously injured or ill, you become a burden to the crew. Pirates can't afford to care for members who can't work, and disabled crew members are often abandoned at the next port, or, in extreme cases, forced overboard. There's no pension plan or disability benefits in the pirate world. The psychological toll of pirate life is enormous. You're constantly surrounded by violence and death. Pirates settle disputes with knives and pistols, and executions for breaking ship rules are common. You've probably witnessed men being keel-hauled, a punishment where the victim is dragged under the ship's hull, often resulting in death from drowning or from the sharp barnacles that scrape flesh from bones. You live in constant fear of capture by naval vessels. If you're caught, you'll likely be hanged, either immediately or after a brief trial in a colonial port. The lucky ones die quickly, but some are left hanging as examples to other potential pirates, their bodies rotting in cages for months. The work never ends, and there's no escape. You can't quit and go home. Desertion is punishable by death, and even if you could escape, you're often hundreds of miles from any friendly port. Most pirates are effectively trapped in this life until they die, which usually happens within a few years of joining a crew. Sleep, when you can get it, is fitful and interrupted. You're awakened frequently for watchers, emergency repairs, or battle preparations. The constant noise of the ship, the snoring and coughing of your shipmates, and the discomfort of your sleeping conditions mean you're chronically exhausted. Your social status is lower than that of almost any other profession. Pirates are hated and feared by legitimate sailors, merchants, and colonists. You can't enter most ports openly, and when you do go ashore, you're usually confined to the worst taverns and brothels in the most dangerous parts of town. Despite the romanticized image of pirates as free men living by their own rules, the reality is that you're subject to strict ships, articles, and harsh discipline. Breaking rules can result in beatings, marooning on a deserted island, or death. The captain has absolute authority over life and death decisions, and there's no appeal process. The promise of wealth that drew you to piracy is largely an illusion. Most pirate attacks yield little of value, and what treasure is captured must be divided among the entire crew according to strict rules that favor the officers. After months or years of resort, you might find yourself no richer than when you started. But with your health ruined and your prospects for legitimate employment destroyed, your relationship with your fellow crew members is complex and often dangerous. While you depend on each other for survival, trust is a luxury few can afford. Men become pirates for desperate reasons, fleeing debt, criminal charges, or simply grinding poverty. Your shipmates include murderers, thieves, deserters from naval vessels, and runaway slaves. Violence can erupt over the smallest disagreements, a piece of bread, a sip of water, or an imagined insult. The hierarchy aboard ship is rigidly enforced through intimidation and brutality. The quartermaster, second in command to the captain, maintains order through fear. Punishments are swift and often creative in their cruelty. You've seen men flogged until their backs were raw meat, forced to run the gauntlet while crew members beat them with rope ends, or tied to the mast for days without food or water. The most feared punishment is marooning. Offenders are left on small, uninhabited islands with minimal supplies, usually just a pistol with one shot, a small amount of water, and perhaps some hardtack. Most marooned pirates die slowly of thirst or starvation, though some choose to use their single bullet to end their suffering quickly. The threat of marooning keeps even the most rebellious crew members in line. The physical environment of a pirate ship assaults your senses constantly. The sun beating down on the wooden deck becomes unbearable by midday, with temperatures often exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The tar used to seal the deck seams melt and becomes sticky, clinging to your bare feet and making every step a struggle. You've long since given up wearing shoes, as they rot away quickly in the constant dampness, and replacing them is nearly impossible. The noise aboard ship never stops. Wood creaks and groans constantly as the vessel moves through the water, creating an unsettling symphony that makes sleep difficult even during your brief rest periods. The wind howls through the rigging, canvas sails snap and flutter violently when being adjusted, and the officers shout orders that must be heard over the general chaos. Your hearing has probably already been damaged by the deafening roar of cannon fire during battles and by the constant assault of maritime noise. Rats are your constant companions in the ship's lower decks. These aren't small domestic rodents but large, aggressive creatures that have adapted to shipboard life and compete with you for every scrap of food. They bite sleeping crew members, particularly targeting fingers, toes, and ears. Many pirates develop serious infections from rat bites that can lead to fever, blood poisoning, and death. The rats also contaminate food, supplies, and spread disease throughout the cramped quarters. The ship's livestock, when present, adds another layer of misery to daily existence. Pirates occasionally capture live animals from merchant vessels or purchase them in port, keeping chickens, pigs, or goats aboard for fresh meat and eggs. These animals are kept in makeshift pens on deck or in the hold, creating additional filth and attracting more vermin. The smell of animal waste combines with human waste and rotting food to create an atmosphere that's almost physically oppressive. Your sleeping schedule is dictated by the watch system, which divides the crew into rotating shifts that ensure the ship is always properly manned. A typical watch lasts for hours, meaning you're awakened multiple times each night for duty. This constant interruption of sleep leads to chronic exhaustion that affects your judgment, reflexes, and overall health. Many pirates develop a 1,000-yard stare, a vacant expression that comes from months of sleep deprivation and constant stress. The threat of violence permeates every aspect of daily life. Arguments over food rations, sleeping space, or perceived insults can escalate to knife fights within seconds. You've learned to be constantly vigilant, never turning your back on anyone you don't completely trust. Many crew members sleep with weapons within easy reach, and trust is a commodity far more valuable than gold. Gambling, despite being officially prohibited by most ship's articles, occurs constantly in hidden corners of the vessel. Men bet their shares of future prizes, personal possessions, or even their rations on dice games, card games, or any other form of chance they can devise. These gambling sessions often lead to disputes that turn violent, and many pirates find themselves in debt to their shipmates, creating dangerous power dynamics that can last for months. The ship's drinking water, stored in large wooden casks, deteriorates rapidly in the tropical heat. Within weeks of being filled, the water develops a foul taste and smell as algae grows in the barrels and the wood imparts unpleasant flavors. Small organisms begin breeding in the water, creating a cloudy, unappetizing liquid that you force yourself to drink because the alternative is death from dehydration. Many pirates develop chronic stomach problems from consuming this contaminated water. Your hands tell the story of your life as a pirate. Every finger bears scars from rope burns, knife cuts, and various injuries sustained during work or combat. Your palms are so calloused that you've lost much of your sense of touch, making it difficult to perform delicate tasks. Several fingers might be crooked from breaks that healed poorly, and you may be missing a finger or two entirely. Lost to infected wounds or accidents with ship's equipment. The sun's effect on your skin is devastating. Constant exposure to tropical sunlight, combined with reflection off the water, causes severe burning and premature aging. Your face is leathery and deeply lined, making you look decades older than your actual age. Many pirates develop skin cancers, though they have no understanding of what causes the painful, growing sores that appear on their most sun-exposed areas. Eye problems are common among pirates, contrary to the romantic image of eye patches being solely the result of combat injuries. The intense sunlight reflecting off the water causes damage to vision over time, and many pirates develop cataracts or other vision problems while still relatively young. Some pirates do wear eye patches, but often it's to preserve night vision in one eye, allowing them to see better when moving between the bright deck and dark hold. Your teeth, or what remains of them, are in terrible condition. The lack of fresh fruits and vegetables causes scurvy, which makes your gums swell, bleed, and eventually causes teeth to fall out. The hard, moldy food you're forced to eat damages and breaks teeth that are already weakened by poor nutrition. Toothaches are a constant torment, and there's no real treatment available beyond having infected teeth pulled out with crude tools and no anesthetic. The isolation from normal society weighs heavily on your mental state. You can't write letters home, even if you were literate, because doing so would reveal your location and activities to authorities. You have no idea if your family members are alive or dead, and they certainly don't know what has become of you. This emotional isolation, combined with the physical hardships and constant danger, takes a severe psychological toll. Religious practice aboard pirate ships is complicated and often contradictory. Many pirates carry religious medallions or crosses, pray before battles, and express belief in God and the afterlife. Yet they're fully aware that their actions place them outside the moral community recognized by organized religion. This cognitive dissonance creates additional psychological stress, particularly when facing death or serious injury. Superstition fills the void left by organized religion and rational explanation. Pirates believe in countless omens and signs, from the appearance of certain birds to the behavior of the wind and waves. Women aboard ship are considered bad luck by many, leading to the rape and murder of female passengers rather than allowing them to remain aboard. Whistling is forbidden because it might bring up storms, and many other arbitrary rules govern daily behavior to ward off perceived supernatural threats. The concept of personal property is complicated aboard a pirate vessel. While you nominally own the clothes on your back and perhaps a few small items, everything is subject to redistribution if the crew votes to share resources. Your knife, your tin cup, even your hammock might be taken and given to another crew member if the group decides it's necessary. This communal ownership creates constant tension and resentment. Medical emergencies are handled with brutal efficiency. If you're wounded in battle, the ship's surgeon, who is usually just another crew member with some basic experience, will treat you with the limited supplies available. Amputation is the standard response to serious limb injuries, performed with a carpenter's saw and without anesthetic beyond a bottle of rum. The surgery takes place on the same tables where meals are prepared, and survival rates are extremely low due to infection and blood loss. Your relationship with death becomes casual and matter-of-fact. You've seen so many shipmates die from disease, injury, combat, or execution that death no longer shocks you. Bodies are quickly sewn into canvas shrouds and thrown overboard with minimal ceremony, as keeping corpses aboard in the tropical heat is impracticable. You've probably lost count of how many friends you've watched slide into the ocean, their bodies immediately attracting sharks that follow the ship, hoping for more easy meals. This is the reality of life as a common pirate, a daily struggle for survival in conditions that would break most modern people within weeks. Far from the romantic adventure stories, it was a brutal existence that few chose willingly and even fewer survived for long. Yet tomorrow, you'll wake up to face another day of this nightmare. Because in the world of piracy, there simply is no other choice. Navigation and sailing in the early 18th century requires skills that take years to develop. But as a common pirate, you're expected to learn quickly or face serious consequences. You must understand wind patterns, how to read the stars, and how to interpret the captain's orders regarding sail configuration. A mistake in following orders during a storm or battle can result in the death of your shipmates, making you a target for violent retribution. The tools of your trade are crude and dangerous. Cutlasses, the preferred weapon of pirates, are heavy, poorly balanced, and often in terrible condition. The pistols carried by pirates are unreliable flintlock weapons that misfire frequently and take considerable time to reload. In close combat, you're more likely to use a boarding axe, a marlinspike, or even your bare hands. Fighting is brutal and personal, with little of the elegant swordplay depicted in movies. Your clothing, what little you have, serves multiple purposes beyond basic modesty. Pirates often wear multiple layers, not for warmth, but because clothing also serves as bandages, tourniquets, and padding during battle. Your hat isn't just for protection from the sun, it's also used to carry water, food, or small valuables. Every piece of fabric on your body might be needed for emergency repairs to sails or rigging. The psychological impact of constant violence cannot be overstated. You've probably killed men in battle, watched friends die horribly from disease or injury, and participated in or witnessed torture during interrogations of captured crew members. Many pirates developed what we might now recognize as post-traumatic stress, becoming increasingly unstable and prone to sudden violence as their careers progress. Weather is your constant enemy. Tropical storms in the Caribbean can appear with little warning, turning calm seas into mountainous waves that threaten to destroy your ship. During storms, You're expected to work on deck in conditions that would terrify experienced sailors. Lightning strikes are common, and the metal fittings on the ship make it a natural target. You've probably lost shipmates to lightning strikes or to being washed overboard during rough weather. The heat in tropical waters is relentless. The sun beats down on the wooden deck, making it too hot to touch with bare feet. Below deck, temperatures can reach unbearable levels, and men regularly collapse from heat exhaustion. There's no escape from the sun except in the cramped, airless spaces below deck, where the heat is trapped and intensified. Despite all these hardships, desertion remains nearly impossible. Even if you could escape the ship, you're branded as a pirate by your appearance, your lack of proper documentation, and often by actual brands or tattoos marking you as a crew member. Colonial authorities offer rewards for captured pirates, making every interaction with strangers potentially fatal. This is the reality of life as a common pirate, a daily struggle for survival in conditions that would break most modern people within weeks. Far from the romantic adventure stories, it was a brutal existence that few chose willingly, and even fewer survived for long. Yet tomorrow, you'll wake up to face another day of this nightmare, because in the world of piracy, there simply is no other choice. The rise and fall of Edward Teach, Blackbeard's journey from privateer to pirate legend. As we transition from the harsh daily realities of common pirate life, let us turn our attention to perhaps the most infamous pirate captain of all time, Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. His story illuminates not just the life of a legendary figure, but the complex political and economic forces that created the Golden Age of Piracy itself. Edward Teach was likely born around 1680 in Bristol, England, though some historians suggest he may have been born in Jamaica or even Virginia. What we know for certain is that he emerged from the legitimate maritime world of privateering, a practice that would shape both his skills and his eventual transformation into the most feared pirate of his era. Privateering was essentially legalized piracy, sanctioned by governments through documents called letters of marque. During Queen Anne's War, which raged from 1702 to 1713, English privateers were encouraged to attack Spanish and French vessels, keeping a portion of their captured goods while turning over the rest to the crown. This system created a generation of skilled sailors who knew how to fight, capture ships, and navigate the dangerous waters of the Caribbean. Young Edward Teach served aboard privateer vessels operating out of Jamaica, learning the arts of seamanship, combat, and leadership under the legal protection of the English government. He developed skills in navigation, understanding wind patterns and ocean currents that would later serve him well as a pirate captain. More importantly, he learned how to command men in the violent, uncertain world of maritime warfare. The end of Queen Anne's War in 1713 created a crisis for thousands of experienced privateers. The Treaty of Utrecht brought peace between England, France, and Spain, eliminating the legal justification for privateering. Suddenly, men who had spent years as legitimate warriors found themselves without employment, possessing skills that were only valuable in warfare, but living in a time of peace. Many former privateers faced a stark choice: return to the legitimate merchant marine for much lower wages and harsh working conditions, or continue their profitable maritime careers outside the law. For Edward Teach and hundreds of others, the decision was perhaps inevitable. The transition from privateer to pirate was often seamless, requiring little change in tactics or targets, only a willingness to operate without government sanction. Teach likely began his pirate career around 1713 or 1714, serving under Captain Benjamin Hornigold. a former privateer who had established himself as one of the most successful pirate captains in the Caribbean. Hornigold operated from Nassau in the Bahamas, which had become a virtual pirate republic following its abandonment by legitimate colonial authorities. Nassau was perfectly positioned for piracy. Located in the heart of major shipping lanes, it offered sheltered harbors, fresh water, and easy access to both the Atlantic shipping routes and the Caribbean trade networks. The local government had collapsed, leaving the island effectively ungoverned and making it an ideal base for illegal operations. Under Hornigold's tutelage, Teague learned the practical aspects of pirate leadership. He discovered how to maintain discipline among crews of desperate, violent men, while also ensuring their loyalty through fair distribution of captured wealth. He studied the psychology of maritime combat, learning that reputation and intimidation were often more valuable than actual fighting ability. Hornigold recognized Teague's potential and gradually gave him increasing responsibility. By 1716, Teague was commanding his own vessel as part of Hornigold's fleet, leading attacks on merchant ships throughout the Caribbean. His reputation for both competence and ruthlessness began to spread among both pirates and their victims. The transformation of Edward Teague into Blackbeard was as much about theatrical performance as it was about maritime skill, understanding that fear was his most powerful weapon. Teague began cultivating an image designed to terrify anyone who encountered him. He grew his dark beard long and wild, weaving hemp and ribbons into it to make it appear even more impressive and unnatural. Before battle, Blackbeard would place slow-burning hemp under his hat, creating a wreath of smoke around his head that made him appear demonic in the chaos of combat. He carried multiple pistols across his chest, not just for firepower, but for the intimidating visual effect they created. His clothing was deliberately theatrical, designed to make him appear larger and more frightening than life. This carefully crafted image served a practical purpose beyond mere intimidation. Ships that surrendered without fighting were more valuable to pirates than those that had to be taken by force. Cargo could be damaged in battle. Crew members who might provide valuable information could be killed, and pirates themselves could be wounded or killed in unnecessary fights. Blackbeard's terrifying reputation often meant that merchant vessels would surrender immediately upon seeing his distinctive black flag. In late 1717, Blackbeard achieved his greatest prize when he captured a large French slave ship called La Concorde near the island of St. Vincent. This vessel, which he renamed Queen Anne's Revenge, became his flagship and the foundation of his power. The ship was substantial enough to carry 40 cannons, making it one of the most heavily armed pirate vessels in the Caribbean. With Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard assembled a formidable fleet. He commanded over 300 men across multiple vessels, making him one of the most powerful pirate captains of his era. His fleet operated with remarkable coordination, using fast sloops to scout for targets, while the heavily armed Queen Anne's Revenge provided the firepower to overwhelm larger merchant vessels or fight off naval patrols. Blackbeard's tactical innovations went beyond simple ship capture. He understood the importance of intelligence networks, cultivating contacts in legitimate ports who could provide information about valuable cargo ships and naval movements. He also recognized the value of psychological warfare, spreading stories about his cruelty and supernatural powers that often preceded his actual arrival in an area. One of Blackbeard's most audacious operations occurred in May 1718, when he blockaded the port of Charleston, South Carolina. For nearly a week, his fleet stopped and searched every vessel entering or leaving the harbor, effectively shutting down one of the most important ports in colonial America. The blockade demonstrated not just Blackbeard's power, but also the weakness of colonial defenses against organized pirate operations. The Charleston blockade was motivated by a desperate need for medical supplies. Several members of Blackbeard's crew were suffering from syphilis and other diseases, and the ship's surgeon required specific medicines that were only available in major colonial ports. Rather than risk capture by entering Charleston harbor, Blackbeard simply brought the port to him, forcing the colonial government to negotiate for the safe passage of their shipping. The successful completion of the Charleston blockade marked the height of Blackbeard's power, but it also made him too prominent to ignore. Colonial governors and naval commanders who had previously been content to avoid confronting powerful pirate fleets now faced political pressure to take decisive action against the man who had humiliated one of their major ports. Blackbeard seemed to recognize that his position was becoming untenable. In June 1718, he accepted a royal pardon offered by Governor Charles Eaton of North Carolina, theoretically ending his pirate career and becoming a legitimate citizen. However, this transition to legitimate life proved more difficult than Blackbeard had anticipated. The pardon process was controversial and complicated. Many colonial officials suspected that Blackbeard's retirement from piracy was temporary, and that he was using his legal status to plan future operations. Governor Eden's willingness to grant pardons to pirates was seen by many as evidence of corruption, with rumors suggesting that the governor was receiving a share of pirate profits in exchange for his protection. Blackbeard attempted to establish himself as a legitimate merchant in Bath, North Carolina, but found civilian life both boring and unprofitable compared to his pirate career. The skills that had made him successful as a pirate captain, intimidation, violence, and the ability to command desperate men, were not particularly useful in legitimate commerce. By the fall of 1718, Blackbeard had returned to piracy, though on a much smaller scale than his previous operations. He commanded only a single sloop with a crew of fewer than 20 men, a dramatic reduction from the fleet of hundreds that had blockaded Charleston just months earlier. This return to piracy would prove to be his final mistake. Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy had been specifically tasked with eliminating Blackbeard by Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia. Spotswood, unlike Governor Eden, was determined to end piracy in his region and was willing to use significant resources to achieve this goal. He provided Maynard with 2 armed sloops and authorization to pursue Blackbeard into North Carolina waters if necessary. On November 22, 1718, Maynard located Blackbeard's sloop anchored near Ocracoke Island. The final battle between Blackbeard and legitimate authority was surprisingly brief and brutal. Despite his reduced circumstances, Blackbeard fought with the same ferocity that had made him legendary, but he was ultimately overwhelmed by Maynard's superior numbers and firepower. Blackbeard died on the deck of Maynard's sloop, his body bearing over 20 wounds from cutlass and pistol. According to contemporary accounts, he continued fighting even after receiving what should have been mortal injuries, testament to both his physical toughness and his determination not to be taken alive. Lieutenant Maynard had Blackbeard's head cut off and hung from the bowsprit of his ship as proof of the pirate's death. The death of Blackbeard marked a turning point in the war against piracy. His dramatic end demonstrated that even the most powerful and feared pirate captains were not invincible, encouraging other colonial officials to take more aggressive action against pirate operations in their territories. Within a few years, the major pirate strongholds in the Caribbean had been eliminated, bringing the Golden Age of Piracy to an end. The manner of Blackbeard's death became the subject of intense speculation and legend. Contemporary accounts describe the final battle in varying levels of detail, but all agree that Tige fought with extraordinary ferocity. Lieutenant Maynard's official report stated that Blackbeard received 5 pistol shots and over 20 cutlass wounds before finally falling. Some accounts suggest that he was still attempting to reload a pistol when he died, refusing to surrender even as his life drained away. The psychological impact of Blackbeard's death on the pirate community was profound. For years, he had seemed almost invulnerable, escaping naval patrols and emerging victorious from encounters with superior forces through a combination of tactical skill and sheer intimidation. His death demonstrated that the era of large-scale piracy was ending, as colonial governments marshaled sufficient resources and determination to eliminate even the most powerful pirate leaders. Maynard's decision to display Blackbeard's severed head was both practical and symbolic. The head served as proof of death, ensuring that Maynard could claim the substantial reward offered for Blackbeard's capture or killing. More importantly, the public display of the pirate captain's head sent a powerful message to other pirates that their careers would end in similar fashion. The head was hung from the bowsprit of Maynard's vessel as he sailed back to Virginia, and later it was displayed on a pole at the entrance to the Hampton River as a warning to other would-be pirates. The legends that grew up around Blackbeard's final battle included stories that his headless body swam around Maynard's ship several times before sinking. A tale that speaks to the supernatural aura that surrounded the pirate captain, even in death. While clearly fictional, such stories demonstrate the impact Blackbeard's carefully cultivated image had on the popular imagination of his era. The disposition of Blackbeard's crew following the battle reveals the harsh realities facing captured pirates. Those who survived the engagement were transported to Williamsburg, Virginia, where they faced trial for piracy. Most were convicted and sentenced to death by hanging, their executions carried out publicly as warnings to others. A few crew members who could prove they had been forced into piracy against their will received pardons, but the majority met the same fate as their captain, if somewhat less dramatically. The investigation following Blackbeard's death revealed the extent of his network of collaborators and supporters. Governor Eden of North Carolina faced serious questions about his relationship with the pirate, though he was never formally charged with corruption. Evidence suggested that Eden had received shares of Blackbeard's plunder in exchange for providing protection and legal cover. But the political complications of prosecuting a sitting governor prevented any official action. The treasure that Blackbeard supposedly accumulated during his pirate career became the subject of immediate speculation. Despite the legends, relatively little wealth was found aboard his sloop at the time of his death. This discrepancy between his reputation for successful raiding and the modest amount of treasure recovered fed speculation that he had hidden substantial wealth somewhere along the North Carolina coast. Treasure hunters have searched for Blackbeard's supposed hidden riches for over 3 centuries, though no significant discoveries have been confirmed. The wreck of Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard's flagship, was discovered in 1996 near Beaufort Inlet, North Carolina. The ship had run aground in June 1718, just months before Blackbeard's death. Archaeological investigation of the wreck site has revealed fascinating details about life aboard an 18th century pirate vessel, including weapons, navigational instruments, medical equipment, and personal items belonging to the crew. Analysis of artifacts recovered from Queen Anne's Revenge provides insight into the sophistication of Blackbeard's operations. The ship carried an impressive array of weapons, including cannons of various sizes, small arms, edged weapons, and ammunition. Medical supplies found at the wreck site included surgical instruments and apothecary equipment, suggesting that the ship maintained better medical capabilities than many legitimate vessels of the period. The navigational equipment recovered from the wreck demonstrates the technical expertise required to operate a vessel of Queen Anne's Revenge's size and complexity. Items including dividers, weights for measuring, and fragments of navigational instruments show that Blackbeard's crew included skilled navigators, capable of plotting courses across open ocean and locating specific targets in the vast Caribbean. Personal items recovered from the wreck site humanize the crew of Queen Anne's Revenge, revealing details about their daily lives that contrast with the fearsome reputation of Blackbeard and his men. Gaming pieces suggest that crew members spent their leisure time playing various games, while fragments of writing implements indicate that at least some crew members were literate. The discovery of gold dust and small pieces of jewelry confirms that the ship had captured valuable cargo, though the modest quantities found suggest that legends of Blackbeard's vast wealth may have been exaggerated. The question of why Blackbeard ran his flagship aground at Beaufort Inlet remains a subject of debate among historians. Some scholars suggest it was a genuine navigational error, while others propose that Blackbeard deliberately wrecked the ship as part of a scheme to reduce the size of his fleet and crew, allowing him to keep a larger share of accumulated treasure for himself and a small group of trusted associates. This theory suggests that the acceptance of a royal pardon shortly after the wrecking was part of a planned retirement strategy. The cultural impact of Blackbeard's story extends far beyond his actual historical significance. While he was certainly a successful pirate captain, his career lasted only about 2 years, and his actual impact on colonial commerce was relatively modest compared to other pirate captains of the era. However, his theatrical persona and dramatic death ensured that his name would become synonymous with piracy itself. The first published accounts of Blackbeard's career appeared within a few years of his death in Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724. This book, which may have been written by Daniel Defoe, though this attribution remains controversial, presented romanticized but reasonably accurate accounts of various pirate captains, including Blackbeard. Johnson's descriptions of Blackbeard's appearance and tactics became the foundation for the pirate captain's lasting legend. Subsequent retellings of Blackbeard's story in literature, theatre, and eventually film amplified and distorted his historical reality. Each retelling added new elements, from buried treasure to supernatural abilities, until the legendary Blackbeard bore only a passing resemblance to Edward Teach. This transformation from historical figure to cultural icon demonstrates how quickly fact can become fiction when stories capture the popular imagination. The economic motivations behind Blackbeard's piracy reflect broader patterns in the Atlantic world during the early 18th century. The end of Queen Anne's War created economic dislocation throughout the Caribbean and colonial Atlantic, as thousands of privateers and naval personnel found themselves unemployed. The skills these men possessed were valuable only in warfare or piracy, creating a large pool of experienced maritime warriors with few legitimate employment options. The merchant shipping that Blackbeard and other pirates targeted represented the lifeblood of the colonial economy. Ships carried manufactured goods from Europe to the colonies, raw materials from the colonies back to Europe, and enslaved people, sugar, and other commodities between the Caribbean islands and mainland ports. Disrupting this trade through piracy threatened the economic foundations of colonial society, making pirates not just criminals, but existential threats to the colonial project itself. Blackbeard's story illustrates the complex relationship between legal and illegal maritime activities in the early 18th century. The line between privateering and piracy was often blurry, depending more on political circumstances than on the actual activities involved. Men could be heroes fighting for their country one year and outlaws hunted by that same country the next, with their actions remaining essentially unchanged. The legacy of Edward Teach reminds us that behind every pirate legend was a real person making calculated choices in response to the opportunities and constraints of their historical moment. While Blackbeard certainly cultivated a terrifying image and engaged in violent criminal activities, he was also a skilled leader, capable navigator, and shrewd tactician who understood how to exploit the weaknesses of colonial defenses and merchant shipping during a period of unusual opportunity for maritime outlaws. Blackbeard's story illustrates the complex factors that created and ultimately destroyed the world of Caribbean piracy. Economic disruption following the end of Queen Anne's War created the conditions that drove men to piracy, while weak colonial governments provided the power vacuum that allowed pirate operations to flourish. However, as colonial authorities grew stronger and more determined, the space for large-scale piracy gradually disappeared. The legend of Blackbeard outlived the man himself, growing and evolving over the centuries that followed his death. His carefully crafted image of supernatural menace became the template for pirate villains in literature and popular culture, influencing our modern conception of what pirates looked like and how they behaved. Yet the real Edward Teach was neither the supernatural demon of legend nor the romantic hero of adventure stories, but rather a skilled and ruthless man who understood how to exploit the political and economic chaos of his era. His rise from obscure privateer to legendary pirate captain demonstrates both the opportunities and the ultimate limitations of the pirate life during the Golden Age. While men like Asac, Blackbeard could achieve temporary wealth and power that would have been impossible in legitimate society, they also faced constant danger and the certainty that their careers would end in violence. The story of Edward Teach reminds us that behind every pirate legend was a real person making desperate choices in desperate times. The mystery of Oak Island and the lost treasures of the Golden Age. As we move deeper into our exploration of pirate history, we encounter one of the most enduring mysteries of the Golden Age of piracy, the enigma of buried treasure. While popular culture has filled our imaginations with images of pirates burying chests of gold and silver on remote islands, the reality is far more complex and intriguing. Tonight, we turn our attention to Oak Island, a small piece of land off the coast of Nova Scotia that has captured the imagination of treasure hunters for over 2 centuries. Oak Island sits in Mahone Bay, roughly 60 miles southwest of Halifax. At first glance, it appears unremarkable. A wooded island covering just 140 acres with gently rolling hills and a few small ponds. Yet beneath this peaceful exterior lies one of North America's most persistent archaeological puzzles, a mystery that has consumed fortunes, claimed lives, and continues to baffle investigators to this day. The story begins in the summer of 1795, when 16-year-old Daniel McGuinness was exploring the island and noticed something unusual. In a clearing among the oak trees, he discovered a circular depression in the ground, approximately 13 feet in diameter. Hanging from a tree branch directly above this depression was an old ship's tackle block, the kind used to hoist heavy objects. The arrangement suggested that something substantial had been lowered into the ground at this exact spot. McGuinness returned the next day with 2 friends, Anthony Vaughan and John Smith. The 3 young men began digging, quickly discovering that they were excavating what appeared to be a deliberately constructed shaft. The walls were perfectly round and showed clear evidence of having been dug with tools. Every 10 feet, they encountered platforms made of oak logs that had been carefully fitted across the width of the shaft. The discovery of these wooden platforms intrigued the young treasure hunters. Someone had invested considerable time and effort in creating this elaborate underground structure. The oak logs showed signs of aging and had clearly been in place for many years, possibly decades. Most intriguingly, the logs appeared to have been cut with tools that were not commonly available to local settlers, suggesting that whoever created this shaft had access to ship's carpentry equipment. After reaching a depth of 30 feet and encountering a third platform, the young men realized they needed more resources to continue their excavation. They attempted to recruit additional help from local residents, but found that many islanders were reluctant to become involved. Oak Island had a reputation for strange occurrences, and some locals believed it was cursed or haunted. The boys eventually abandoned their dig, but the mystery of the shaft remained in their thoughts. John Smith eventually purchased the land containing the shaft, hoping to return to the excavation at some point in the future. For several years, the site remained undisturbed, but the story of the strange shaft gradually spread throughout the region. In 1803, a local businessman named Simeon Linz learned of the discovery and formed the Onslow Company, the first organized attempt to solve the Oak Island mystery. Linz brought additional equipment and workers to the island, resuming excavation of what had become known as the Money Pit. The expanded expedition quickly confirmed the earlier findings, discovering additional oak platforms at regular intervals as they dug deeper. The Onslow Company made several significant discoveries that deepened the mystery rather than solving it. At the 60-foot level, they found a layer of putty or clay that appeared to have been imported to the island, as no similar material existed naturally in the area. At 70 feet, they discovered a layer of coconut fiber, despite the fact that coconut palms do not grow anywhere near Nova Scotia's cold climate. The most intriguing discovery came at 90 feet, where the excavators found a flat stone inscribed with mysterious symbols. The stone was carefully carved with what appeared to be a coded message, though no one could immediately decipher its meaning. Local residents who examined the stone reported that the symbols resembled no known language or writing system, adding to the growing sense that Oak Island held secrets from a distant and exotic source. Contemporary accounts described the inscribed stone as bearing symbols that included triangles, circles, and dots arranged in specific patterns. Some observers believed the markings resembled ancient runic scripts, while others suggested they might be a form of nautical code used by sailors. The stone itself disappeared in the early 20th century, adding another layer of mystery to the Oak Island puzzle. As the Onslow Company dug deeper, they encountered increasingly sophisticated engineering. The shaft was clearly the work of people with advanced knowledge of underground construction and water management. At 90 feet, the excavators struck what they believed was a wooden chest or box. But before they could extract it, water began flooding the shaft with alarming speed. The flooding was not natural groundwater seepage, but appeared to be the result of a deliberately engineered booby trap. Investigation revealed that the Money Pit was connected to an elaborate system of flood tunnels that drew water from Smith's Cove, approximately 500 feet away. These tunnels were carefully constructed with stone drains and appeared to be designed to flood the shaft whenever excavation reached a certain depth. The discovery of the flood tunnel system revealed the true sophistication of whoever created the Oak Island works. This was not a simple hole in the ground, but an elaborate engineering project that would have required significant time, manpower, and expertise to construct. The builders clearly intended to protect whatever they had buried, and they had the knowledge and resources to create a defense system that remained effective more than a century after its construction. Subsequent investigations revealed that the flood tunnel system was even more complex than initially believed. Multiple tunnels connected the Money Pit to various points along the shoreline, creating a network that would flood the central shaft from several directions simultaneously. The tunnels were carefully graded to ensure proper water flow and were reinforced with stone and timber to prevent collapse. The engineering required to create this system would have been challenging even for trained military engineers of the 18th century. The builders needed to calculate precise angles and gradients to ensure that tunnels would flood the shaft effectively while remaining stable over time. They also needed to coordinate the construction of multiple underground passages while maintaining secrecy about their activities. Over the following decades, numerous expeditions attempted to solve the Oak Island mystery, each adding new pieces to the puzzle while failing to reach the ultimate prize. The Oak Island Association was formed in 1861, bringing more sophisticated equipment and techniques to the excavation. This group made several important discoveries, including evidence of additional shafts and underground chambers. The 1861 expedition discovered what appeared to be a second shaft, offset from the original money pit but connected to the same flood tunnel system. This finding suggested that the Oak Island works were even more extensive than previously believed, involving multiple burial sites or storage areas. The existence of additional shafts implied that whoever created the Oak Island mystery had buried multiple items or had created decoy sites to confuse future treasure hunters. Investigation of the flood tunnels revealed sophisticated construction techniques that would have been familiar to naval engineers and ships, carpenters of the Golden Age of Piracy. The tunnels were lined with carefully fitted stones and sealed with a putty-like substance that appeared to be ship's caulking compound. Wooden supports in the tunnels were joined using traditional ship carpentry techniques, suggesting that the builders had maritime experience. The connection to piracy became more intriguing when investigators discovered that Oak Island was ideally positioned for 18th century maritime operations. The island sits near major shipping routes that were heavily used during the Golden Age of Piracy, and Mahone Bay provided excellent shelter for ships seeking to avoid colonial authorities. Several documented pirate operations occurred in the region during the early 1700s. Captain William Kidd, one of the most famous pirates of the era, is known to have operated in Nova Scotia waters during his career. Kidd was originally commissioned as a privateer to hunt pirates, but gradually turned to piracy himself, accumulating substantial wealth before his capture and execution in 1701. Some theories suggest that Kidd or his associates may have used Oak Island as a secure storage site for their accumulated treasures. The timing of Kidd's activities corresponds closely with the estimated age of the Oak Island works. Tree ring analysis of the oak platforms found in the money pit suggests they were cut in the late 1600s or early 1700s, exactly the period when Kidd was most active in the region. The sophisticated engineering of the flood tunnel system would have been well within the capabilities of experienced naval personnel like those in Kidd's crew. Other pirate captains active in the region during this period include Samuel Bellamy, Edward Lowe, and Bartholomew Roberts, all of whom accumulated substantial treasures during their careers. The Nova Scotia coast provided numerous secluded islands and inlets that would have been perfect for hiding valuable cargo. And Oak Island's location made it accessible to ships while remaining hidden from casual observation. The mystery deepened in the 20th century when modern excavation techniques revealed additional anomalies beneath Oak Island. Ground-penetrating radar and other technological tools detected what appeared to be artificial cavities and metal objects buried throughout the island. Some of these anomalies suggested the presence of large metal objects consistent with treasure chests or strongboxes. Carbon dating of organic materials found in the money pit confirmed that the shaft was constructed sometime between 1650 and 1720, precisely during the Golden Age of Piracy. Analysis of the coconut fiber found at various levels in the shaft revealed that it originated in the Caribbean, strongly suggesting a connection to maritime activities in that region during the period when pirates were most active. Chemical analysis of metal fragments recovered from the money pit revealed traces of gold, silver, and lead in concentrations that suggested the presence of precious metals. These findings were tantalizing but not conclusive, as the metal traces could have originated from various sources including ship's fittings, navigation instruments, or actual treasure. The Oak Island mystery has attracted numerous theories beyond simple pirate treasure. Some researchers have suggested connections to the Knights Templar, proposing that the island contains religious artifacts or documents hidden by the medieval military order. Others have theorized that the site contains Shakespearean manuscripts, suggesting that the true identity of the playwright was hidden on Oak Island along with his original works. More exotic theories have proposed connections to Viking explorers, lost civilizations, or even extraterrestrial visitors. However, the evidence most strongly supports a connection to 18th century maritime activities, and the pirate treasure theory remains the most plausible explanation for the Oak Island. Works based on historical evidence and archaeological findings. The ongoing Oak Island investigations have revealed that the mystery extends far beyond the original money pit. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence of additional underground structures, including what appears to be a sophisticated drainage system that extends throughout much of the island. These discoveries suggest that Oak Island was the site of a major construction project that involved far more work than simply burying a few chests of treasure. The scale and sophistication of the Oak Island works imply that whoever created them had substantial resources and advanced engineering knowledge. This level of organization and technical capability was most commonly found among naval personnel, military engineers, or wealthy merchants involved in maritime trade. During the Golden Age of Piracy, such expertise was often concentrated among pirate crews that included former naval officers, experienced ships, carpenters, and skilled navigators. Today, Oak Island continues to yield new mysteries, even as modern technology provides unprecedented insight into its underground structures. The island represents not just the possibility of buried treasure, but a window into the sophisticated operations of Golden Age pirates and the lengths they would go to protect their accumulated wealth. Whether the ultimate secret of Oak Island is treasure, historical artifacts, or something else entirely, the mystery continues to demonstrate the ingenuity and ambition of those who lived and worked during one of history's most fascinating maritime eras. The cultural impact of the Oak Island mystery extends far beyond treasure hunting, influencing our understanding of how pirates actually operated during the Golden Age. The sophisticated engineering found on the island challenges popular misconceptions about pirates as simple thieves and murderers, revealing instead a level of organization and technical knowledge that suggests complex business operations. Recent archaeological work has uncovered additional evidence of the island's mysterious past. In 2019, investigators discovered what appears to be a medieval lead cross buried in the swamp area of the island, potentially dating to the 14th century. This finding has reignited theories about pre-Columbian visitors to North America, though the cross's authenticity and origin remain subjects of intense debate among historians and archaeologists. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted in the last decade have revealed an extensive network of underground anomalies throughout Oak Island. These surveys suggest the presence of multiple chambers, tunnels, and void spaces that extend far beyond the original money pit area. The complexity of these underground structures implies a construction project that would have taken months or even years to complete, requiring a substantial workforce and significant resources. The economic implications of such an undertaking during the Golden Age of Piracy are staggering. To fund a construction project of this magnitude, the builders would have needed access to enormous wealth, far beyond what most individual pirates could accumulate. This suggests either a collaborative effort between multiple pirate crews, or the involvement of extremely successful captains, who had amassed fortunes through years of successful raids. Analysis of wood samples taken from various levels of the money pit has revealed fascinating details about the construction timeline. Different layers show evidence of being constructed at different times, suggesting that the Oak Island works were expanded or modified over a period of several years. This pattern would be consistent with pirates, returning to the island multiple times to add additional treasure or to improve the security of their hidden cache. The presence of parchment fragments discovered at the 90-foot level of the money pit has tantalizing implications for understanding what might be buried on the island. Chemical analysis of these fragments suggests they are consistent with 18th century document paper, potentially indicating that important papers or maps were buried along with any treasure. Such documents could include detailed records of pirate operations, maps to other treasure sites, or even evidence of collaboration between pirates and colonial officials. Water analysis from the flood tunnel system has revealed traces of minerals and compounds that are not naturally occurring in the Nova Scotia region. These foreign substances suggest that materials were transported to Oak Island from distant locations, possibly the Caribbean where many Golden Age pirates operated. The presence of these exotic materials supports theories that Oak Island was connected to far-ranging maritime operations during the pirate era. The psychological appeal of the Oak Island mystery reflects our enduring fascination with the romantic aspects of pirate life while confronting us with evidence of their actual sophistication and capabilities. The island serves as a bridge between the myths and legends that have grown up around pirates and the historical reality of their complex operations during the Golden Age. Modern treasure hunting operations on Oak Island continue to employ cutting-edge technology in their search for answers. Seismic surveys, electromagnetic detection equipment, and even satellite imagery are being used to map the island's underground structures with unprecedented precision. These technological approaches are revealing new details about the construction, methods used by the original builders, and providing fresh insights into the mystery's possible solutions. The international attention focused on Oak Island has also led to increased archaeological investigation of other potential pirate sites throughout the Atlantic coast. Islands and coastal areas from Maine to the Caribbean are being examined with new appreciation for the possibility that Golden Age pirates may have created similar sophisticated hiding places for their treasures and important documents. The Oak Island mystery ultimately reminds us that the Golden Age of Piracy was far more complex and sophisticated than popular culture typically portrays. The engineering capabilities, organizational skills, and long-term planning evidenced by the island's underground works reveal pirates as capable of remarkable feats of coordination and construction, challenging our assumptions about the nature of their operations and the scope of their ambitions during one of history's most remarkable maritime eras. The financial cost of investigating Oak Island has been staggering, with estimates suggesting that over $100 million has been spent on various excavation attempts over the past 2 centuries. This figure includes not just the direct costs of digging and equipment, but also the opportunity costs of land use and the expenses associated with various failed technologies and approaches. Despite this enormous investment, the island has yielded tantalizing clues, but no definitive answers. The human cost of the Oak Island search has been equally significant. At least 6 people have died during excavation attempts, victims of cave-ins, equipment failures, and other accidents associated with underground digging operations. Local tradition holds that 7 people must die before the island will reveal its secrets, a superstition that has added an additional layer of mystique to the ongoing search. Each death has temporarily halted excavations and led to improved safety protocols, but the dangerous nature of digging in unstable underground structures remains a constant concern. The legal and ownership history of Oak Island adds complexity to modern excavation efforts. The island has changed hands numerous times since the original discovery of the money pit, with various individuals and companies purchasing portions or all of the property specifically to pursue treasure hunting operations. Current excavation efforts must navigate complex property rights, provincial regulations, and heritage preservation laws that govern archaeological work in Nova Scotia. The role of modern media in perpetuating and expanding the Oak Island mystery cannot be overstated. Television programs, particularly the long-running series that documents current excavation efforts, have introduced the mystery to global audiences and generated renewed interest in historical treasure hunting. This media attention has brought both benefits and challenges, providing funding for sophisticated excavation techniques while also creating pressure to produce dramatic discoveries that may not align with careful archaeological methodology. Comparative analysis of Oak Island with other potential treasure sites throughout the Atlantic world reveals interesting patterns. Several islands in the Caribbean and along the North American coast show evidence of similar underground construction projects from the 17th and 18th centuries, though none match the scale and sophistication of the Oak Island works. These other sites suggest that the practice of creating elaborate hiding places for treasure or contraband was more widespread than previously believed. The Cocos Island treasure mystery off the coast of Costa Rica shares several features with Oak Island, including stories of elaborate underground works and massive hidden wealth from the pirate era. Similarly, Gardiner's Island off Long Island, New York, has documented connections to Captain Kidd, who allegedly buried treasure there before his arrest. These parallel mysteries suggest that successful pirates did indeed create sophisticated hiding places for their wealth, lending credibility to the Oak Island treasure theory. The technological evolution of treasure hunting is clearly visible in the history of Oak Island excavations. Early attempts relied on manual labor and simple mechanical devices like pulleys and pumps. The 19th century brought steam-powered equipment that could dig deeper and pump out water more effectively. The 20th century introduced drilling equipment that could take core samples from deep underground, revealing the presence of artifacts without requiring full excavation. Contemporary excavation efforts employ technologies that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. Ground-penetrating radar can map underground structures without disturbing the soil. Electromagnetic surveys detect metal objects buried at significant depths. Three-dimensional modeling software allows researchers to visualize the complex underground network and plan excavation strategies. Robotic cameras can be lowered into narrow boreholes to directly observe underground chambers. Despite these technological advances, the fundamental challenge of Oak Island remains largely unchanged. The flood tunnel system continues to frustrate excavation attempts, as any major digging operation triggers water inflow that quickly fills the worksite. Modern pumping equipment can manage the water flow to some extent, but the volume of water and the multiple sources feeding the tunnel network make it extremely difficult to keep excavation areas dry enough for safe work. The geological composition of Oak Island contributes significantly to the excavation challenges. The island sits on limestone bedrock riddled with natural cavities and channels that connect to the ocean. These natural features may have been incorporated into the original flood tunnel design, making it nearly impossible to completely seal off water sources. Some geologists argue that the money pit may have been deliberately positioned over a natural limestone cavity, allowing the builders to create their flood trap with less excavation work. The question of what could possibly be valuable enough to justify such elaborate protective measures remains central to evaluating Oak Island theories. While pirate treasure is the most romantic explanation, other possibilities include royal treasures hidden during periods of political upheaval, religious artifacts removed from Europe during the Reformation, or important documents that powerful individuals wanted to keep secret. The level of engineering sophistication suggests that whatever was hidden was considered extremely valuable by the standards of the 18th century. Analysis of historical shipping records from the 17th and 18th centuries reveals numerous vessels that disappeared without trace in the North Atlantic, some known to be carrying valuable cargoes. It's theoretically possible that survivors from a shipwreck, perhaps carrying rescued treasure, could have created the Oak Island Works as a secure storage site while they sought rescue or made plans to recover their wealth. This scenario would explain both the sophisticated maritime engineering and the apparent abandonment of the site. The role of the Micmac people, the indigenous inhabitants of Nova Scotia, in the Oak Island mystery remains largely unexplored in popular accounts. The Micmac had extensive knowledge of the island and surrounding waters long before European settlement. Oral traditions within Micmac communities include references to the island and its unusual features. Though these stories have not been systematically documented or integrated into mainstream Oak Island research, some researchers have suggested that the Oak Island Works might predate the pirate era entirely, possibly created by earlier European visitors to North America. This theory, while controversial, would explain the sophisticated engineering that seems advanced even for 18th century standards. French military engineers active in the region during the colonial period possessed the necessary skills and knowledge to create such elaborate underground structures. And they had various reasons for wanting secure storage facilities for military supplies, documents, or treasure. The environmental impact of 2 centuries of excavation has been significant. Large portions of the island have been repeatedly dug up, refilled, and dug again, fundamentally altering the original landscape. This disturbance makes it increasingly difficult to distinguish between original 18th century construction and later excavation work. Some areas of the island have been so thoroughly disturbed that determining what is original and what is the result of treasure hunting activities has become nearly impossible. The preservation of historical evidence on Oak Island has become an increasing concern as excavation techniques have evolved. Early treasure hunters, motivated purely by the search for gold and silver, paid little attention to preserving or documenting artifacts they encountered. Many potentially valuable historical items were likely destroyed or discarded because they weren't immediately recognized as treasure. Modern archaeological standards emphasize careful documentation and preservation, but the damage done by earlier excavations cannot be undone. The social dynamics among Oak Island researchers and treasure hunters add another fascinating dimension to the mystery. Different groups pursuing excavation on the island have sometimes been rivals, competing for the same prize, while at other times they have collaborated and shared information. Theories about what might be buried and where to dig have created factions among researchers, with some groups pursuing evidence of pirate treasure while others search for alternative explanations. The question of whether the Oak Island mystery will ever be conclusively solved remains open. Some researchers believe that the original treasure, if it ever existed, was recovered by the builders themselves or by early excavators who chose not to report their discovery. Others argue that the treasure remains buried, protected by engineering that has proven effective for over 2 centuries. Still others suggest that the mystery itself may be more valuable than any physical treasure, generating tourism, revenue, and cultural interest that benefits the local community. What remains undeniable is that Oak Island represents one of the most enduring and sophisticated mysteries in North American history. Whether created by pirates, military engineers, or some other group entirely, the underground works demonstrate remarkable engineering skill and suggest the presence of secrets that someone considered worth extraordinary efforts to protect. The island continues to challenge our understanding of what was possible in the 18th century and reminds us that history still holds mysteries that resist easy explanation. Life among the pirate elite, the captains, their codes, and the end of an era. As we reach the final portion of our journey through the world of Golden Age piracy, we turn our attention to those who lived at the very top of the pirate hierarchy. While we began by exploring the harsh realities faced by common crew members, the experience of pirate captains and their officers was dramatically different, revealing a complex social structure that governed these floating communities during one of history's most lawless periods. The life of a successful pirate captain during the Golden Age was one of considerable luxury, at least by the standards of early 18th century maritime life. Captain Bartholomew Roberts, known as Blackbeard, exemplified the lifestyle that successful pirate leadership could provide. Roberts commanded a fleet of ships and over 400 men at the height of his career, making him one of the most powerful individuals in the Caribbean, with influence that rivaled colonial governors and naval commanders. Roberts' daily routine aboard his flagship, the Royal Fortune, was markedly different from that of his crew members. He occupied spacious quarters in the stern castle, furnished with captured goods that included fine furniture, silver dining services, and even musical instruments. His cabin was large enough to accommodate formal dinners with his officers, complete with proper table settings and multiple courses prepared by his personal cook. The captain's wardrobe was equally impressive, consisting of fine coats, silk stockings, and elaborate hats that had been captured from wealthy passengers or purchased in friendly ports. Roberts was known for his vanity regarding his appearance, often wearing a rich crimson damask waistcoat and breeches, a red feather in his hat, and a gold chain around his neck from which hung a large diamond cross. This attention to dress served both personal preference and practical intimidation, as his imposing appearance reinforced his authority over both crew and captives. The social structure aboard pirate ships was governed by detailed codes of conduct known as ship's articles, which were far more democratic and egalitarian than the rigid hierarchy found aboard naval or merchant vessels. These articles, which varied from ship to ship but shared common elements, established rules for everything from the distribution of booty to acceptable behavior during shore leave. Captain Roberts' articles, which have survived in historical records, provide fascinating insight into how pirate society regulated itself. The articles established that every crew member had equal voting rights in matters affecting the ship's destination and major decisions about attacks. The captain's authority was absolute during battle, but in peacetime, important decisions were made democratically by the entire crew. The distribution of captured wealth was carefully regulated by these articles. While captains and officers received larger shares, the difference was not as extreme as might be expected. Robert's article specified that the captain would receive 2 shares of any prize, the master and boatswain 1.5 shares each, and common crew members 1 share each. This system ensured that even ordinary pirates received substantial rewards for successful raids, maintaining morale and loyalty within the crew. The articles also address practical matters of shipboard life with remarkable detail. They established quiet hours after 8 in the evening, when lights and candles were to be extinguished. though crew members were free to drink on deck under the open sky. Gambling with cards or dice was prohibited, as it frequently led to disputes and violence among crew members. These regulations show a sophisticated understanding of group psychology and conflict prevention. Punishment systems outlined in pirate articles were often more humane than those found in legitimate naval service, though they could be severe for serious offenses. Minor infractions might result in loss of drinking privileges or reduction in share of booty, while major offenses like desertion or theft from shipmates could result in marooning. The articles typically required that punishments be approved by a majority vote of the crew, providing a form of due process that was rare in the maritime world of the early 18th century. The daily schedule of pirate officers included responsibilities that extended far beyond simple seamanship. The quartermaster, second in command to the captain, served as both military leader and chief magistrate, settling disputes between crew members and overseeing the fair distribution of food, water, and captured goods. This position required diplomatic skills, as the quartermaster had to balance the conflicting interests of different crew members while maintaining overall ship discipline. Navigation during the Golden Age required sophisticated knowledge that was typically concentrated among the ship's officers. Pirates operated in an era before accurate chronometers, relying on celestial navigation, dead reckoning, and detailed knowledge of local waters to find their way across vast ocean distances. Successful pirate captains were often skilled navigators who could locate specific islands, identify favorable winds and currents, and calculate positions using the stars and sun. The social life aboard pirate ships included entertainments that would have been familiar to wealthy colonists of the era. Many pirate crews included musicians who provided evening entertainment, playing fiddles, drums, and other instruments captured from merchant vessels. Some ships carried small libraries of books, typically consisting of navigation manuals, religious texts, and occasional works of literature that had been taken from passenger ships. Dining among the pirate elite could be surprisingly sophisticated when circumstances allowed. Successful raids and merchant vessels might yield fine wines, preserved delicacies, and proper dining equipment that allowed captains and officers to maintain gentlemen's dining customs even in the midst of their illegal activities. These formal meals served important social functions, reinforcing the hierarchy within the officer corps and providing opportunities to discuss strategy and share information. The relationship between pirate captains and colonial authorities was often more complex than simple antagonism. Many captains maintained correspondences with colonial officials, sometimes offering information about Spanish activities in exchange for safe passage or favorable treatment. Some pirates even received unofficial protection from colonial governors who valued their services in attacking Spanish shipping while maintaining plausible deniability about their involvement with illegal activities. Governor Charles Eaton of North Carolina's relationship with Blackbeard exemplified this complex dynamic. Eaton provided legal pardons to pirates while apparently receiving shares of their captured goods, creating a mutually beneficial arrangement that blurred the line between legitimate government and criminal enterprise. These relationships allowed successful pirate captains to enjoy periods of quasi-legitimacy, living openly in colonial ports and conducting business like respected merchants. The domestic arrangements of pirate captains often included relationships with women in various Caribbean ports, creating informal families that provided both emotional support and practical intelligence networks. These relationships were typically informal, as formal marriage would have created legal complications for men operating outside the law, but they often involved long-term commitments and financial support for children. Some pirate captains maintained multiple households in different ports, reflecting both their wealth and the practical necessities of their mobile lifestyle. These arrangements required considerable financial resources and demonstrated the substantial profits that successful piracy could generate during the Golden Age. The women involved in these relationships often served as informal agents, gathering information about shipping schedules and naval movements that proved valuable for planning raids. The medical care available to pirate officers was generally superior to that accessible to common crew members, though it remained primitive by modern standards. Captains could afford to hire skilled surgeons and purchase quality medical supplies during port visits, while also having access to captured medical equipment and medicines taken from passenger ships. Some pirate ships carried surprisingly well-equipped medical supplies, including surgical instruments, medications, and even books on medical procedures. The decline of the Golden Age of Piracy was largely driven by changes in colonial policy and naval enforcement that made the comfortable lifestyle of pirate elites increasingly difficult to maintain. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which ended Queen Anne's War, eliminated the legal cover that privateering had provided for many maritime raiders, while also freeing up naval resources for anti-piracy operations. Colonial governments, under pressure from London and from legitimate merchants whose trade was being disrupted, began offering substantial rewards for the capture of pirate captains. These bounties made pirate leaders valuable targets and encouraged betrayal from within their own ranks. The comfortable relationships that many captains had maintained with colonial officials became liabilities as political pressure mounted for more aggressive action against piracy. The execution of prominent pirate captains served as powerful deterrents to others considering similar careers. The trial and execution of Captain Kidd in London in 1701 was widely publicized throughout the Atlantic world, demonstrating that even the most successful pirates would eventually face justice. The dramatic death of Blackbeard in 1718 further reinforced the message that pirate leadership, regardless of its temporary rewards, ultimately led to violent ends. By 1730, the combination of increased naval patrols, colonial cooperation in anti-piracy efforts, and the elimination of major pirate strongholds had effectively ended the Golden Age of Piracy. The last major pirate captain, Bartholomew Roberts, was killed in action against HMS Swallow in 1722, and his death marked the end of large-scale organized piracy in the Atlantic. The legacy of pirate society's unique social structure would influence maritime culture long after the end of the Golden Age. The democratic principles found in pirate articles would later appear in various forms among legitimate sailors, contributing to the development of maritime labor, organizations, and influencing concepts of sailors' rights that persisted well into the modern era. The transformation of pirate captains from historical figures into legendary characters began almost immediately after their deaths. As their stories were romanticized in popular literature and folklore, the real complexity of their lives, the mixture of brutality and sophistication, democracy and autocracy, wealth and constant danger, became simplified into adventure narratives that emphasized excitement over historical accuracy. The economic realities of pirate leadership during the Golden Age were far more complex than simple theft and plunder. Successful captains needed to function as ship owners, military commanders, and business managers simultaneously. They had to maintain their vessels, which required significant investment in repairs, supplies, and equipment. The costs of operating a pirate ship were substantial, including food and water for the crew, gunpowder and ammunition, replacement sails and rigging, and payments to informants and corrupt officials. The financial management skills required of pirate captains were considerable. They needed to evaluate potential targets to determine if the risk of attack was justified by the probable reward. They had to negotiate with merchants in various ports to sell captured goods, often at significant discounts because of the illegal nature of the merchandise. They managed complex systems of credit and debt among their crews, advancing money or goods against future shares of prize money. The intelligence networks the successful pirate captains maintained were crucial to their operations. They cultivated relationships with tavern keepers, dock workers, corrupt customs officials, and merchants who would provide information about valuable cargo shipments in exchange for money or a share of captured goods. These networks required constant maintenance through payments and personal relationships, representing a significant ongoing expense for pirate operations. The relationship between pirate captains and legitimate merchants was often more collaborative than adversarial. Many merchants were willing to purchase goods from pirates at below market prices, asking few questions about provenance. Some merchants even commissioned pirate attacks on their competitors' shipping, blurring the line between legitimate business and criminal enterprise. These arrangements allowed pirates to convert stolen goods into usable currency and supplies. The practice of careening, essential maintenance for wooden ships in tropical waters, required pirate captains to find secluded locations where their vessels could be beached for hull cleaning and repairs. These careening sites needed to offer protection from naval patrols, access to fresh water, and suitable beaches with proper tidal conditions. Establishing and maintaining relationships with local populations who could provide security and supplies at careening sites was a crucial aspect of pirate leadership. The diet available to pirate officers was substantially better than what common crew members received, though still primitive by modern standards. Officers had access to fresh meat when livestock was available, higher quality preserved foods, and sometimes even luxuries like coffee, chocolate, or tea captured from merchant vessels. The captain's cook, often a crew member specifically assigned to this duty, prepared meals that bore some resemblance to genteel dining rather than simple survival rations. The personal libraries maintained by some pirate captains reveal unexpected intellectual interests. Captains like Bartholomew Roberts owned books on navigation, military tactics, and surprisingly, works of literature and philosophy. These libraries, modest by land-based standards, represented significant investments and demonstrated that some pirate leaders saw themselves as gentlemen engaged in maritime warfare rather than simple criminals. The practice of forcing captured specialists to join pirate crews created interesting dynamics aboard pirate vessels. Surgeons, carpenters, musicians, and navigators captured from merchant ships were often compelled to serve aboard pirate vessels, sometimes for months or years. These forced crew members occupied an ambiguous position, neither fully trusted pirates nor truly prisoners. Some eventually chose to remain with pirate crews, even when opportunities for escape presented themselves, finding pirate life preferable to legitimate maritime service. The role of quartermasters in pirate society deserves particular attention, as these officers wielded power that sometimes exceeded that of captains, elected by the crew like captains. Quartermasters represented the crew's interests and could overrule captains on matters not directly related to combat or navigation. This divided leadership structure created a system of checks and balances that prevented captains from becoming tyrannical while ensuring competent leadership during emergencies. The distribution of prize money following successful attacks involved complex calculations based on the ship's articles and the contribution of individual crew members. The quartermaster supervised this distribution, ensuring that each person received their proper share according to pre-established rules. Disputes over shares could quickly escalate into violence, making the quartermaster's role as arbitrator crucial to maintaining crew harmony. The practice of providing compensation for injuries sustained in battle, outlined in most pirate articles, represented a primitive form of disability insurance. A pirate who lost a right arm might receive 600 pieces of 8 or 6 slaves, while lesser injuries received proportionately smaller compensation. This system ensured that crew members who were disabled in service to the ship would not be left destitute, creating incentive for brave fighting while also demonstrating a level of social welfare planning that was unusual for the era. The articles governing pirate ships also addressed romantic and sexual relationships among crew members, an aspect of pirate life often overlooked in popular accounts. Most articles prohibited bringing women aboard ship, but some explicitly forbade sexual relationships between male crew members as well. The enforcement of these rules varied considerably, with some captains strictly prohibiting any sexual activity, while others took a more permissive approach, as long as relationships didn't interfere with ship operations. The presence of women in pirate society, though rare, was more significant than often acknowledged. Anne Bonny and Mary Read became famous as female pirates who served aboard Captain Jack Rackham's vessel, but historical records suggest other women also participated in piracy, sometimes disguised as men and sometimes openly. Some pirate captains maintained long-term relationships with women in various ports who served as business partners, managing the sale of captured goods and providing safe houses for pirates between voyages. The education level of pirate captains varied enormously, from barely literate seamen who rose through ranks to former naval officers with extensive formal education. This diversity of backgrounds created interesting cultural dynamics aboard pirate vessels, with educated captains sometimes attempting to impose standards of behavior and organization drawn from naval or merchant marine traditions, while captains from humbler backgrounds might govern in more informal and egalitarian ways. The use of flags and symbols by pirate captains served both practical and psychological purposes. The famous Jolly Roger, the black flag with skull and crossbones, was just one of many pirate flag designs. Some captains created personalized flags featuring unique symbols, hourglasses to indicate time running out, bleeding hearts to suggest no mercy would be shown, or armed skeletons toasting death. These flags communicated messages to potential targets and helped establish the captain's reputation. The practice of giving quarter, agreeing not to harm enemies who surrendered, was explicitly addressed in many pirate articles. Contrary to popular belief, most pirates preferred to offer quarter because ships that surrendered without fighting yielded more valuable, intact cargo and useful crew members, who could be recruited or ransomed. Reputations for keeping promises of quarter encourage future victims to surrender quickly, making piracy more profitable and less dangerous for the pirates themselves. The retirement strategies employed by successful pirate captains reveal sophisticated financial planning. Some invested their shares of prize money in legitimate businesses, purchasing taverns, boarding houses, or merchant vessels that could provide income after their pirate careers ended. Others attempted to secure royal pardons and transition to legitimate society, though this strategy often failed due to the difficulty of integrating into respectable communities after years of criminal activity. The fate of pirate captains' families after their deaths or capture varied considerably. Some families were left destitute, as pirate wealth was often spent quickly or lost when captains were captured. Others inherited substantial estates, particularly if the pirate had successfully invested in legitimate businesses or property under assumed names. The children of pirates often faced social stigma that followed them throughout their lives. Though some successfully concealed their parentage, and integrated into legitimate society. The religious beliefs and practices of pirate captains were diverse and often contradictory. Some captains maintained regular religious observances aboard their ships, holding prayer services and forbidding work on Sundays, despite engaging in theft and violence throughout the week. Others rejected organized religion entirely, viewing themselves as beyond the moral structures of society. Many fell somewhere between these extremes, maintaining personal faith while acknowledging the incompatibility of their actions with religious teachings. The legacy of pirate governance structures extended beyond the Golden Age of Piracy itself. The democratic practices and written agreements that characterized pirate articles influenced later maritime labor organizations and contributed to developing concepts of workers' rights. The idea that those who performed dangerous work deserved a voice in how operations were conducted and how profits were distributed resonated with subsequent generations of maritime workers and helped shape the evolution of labor relations in the shipping industry. As we conclude our exploration of pirate life during the Golden Age, we're reminded that these were real people facing the challenges and opportunities of their historical moment. The common pirates who suffered through daily misery, the legendary captains who achieved temporary wealth and power, and the mysterious figures who may have buried treasures on remote islands were all products of specific economic, political, and social circumstances that created a unique window of opportunity for maritime lawlessness. Their world has vanished completely, swept away by changes in technology, international law, and naval power that made their way of life impossible to sustain. Yet their stories continue to capture our imagination, perhaps because they represent a form of freedom and adventure that seems impossible in our modern, regulated world, even as we recognize the brutal realities that lay beneath the romantic surface. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the forgotten corners of pirate history. I hope these stories have provided you with both relaxation and insight into a fascinating period of our maritime past. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. What other historical topics would you like us to explore together? Your suggestions and support help shape our community's ongoing journey through history's most intriguing stories. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with peaceful adventures and your rest be deep and restorative. Good night, and thank you for being part of our growing community of history enthusiasts. As we conclude our exploration of pirate life during the Golden Age, we're reminded that these were real people facing the challenges and opportunities of their historical moment. The common pirates who suffered through daily misery, the legendary captains who achieved temporary wealth and power, and the mysterious figures who may have buried treasures on remote islands were all products of specific economic, political, and social circumstances that created a unique window of opportunity for maritime lawlessness. Their world has vanished completely, swept away by changes in technology, international law, and naval power that made their way of life impossible to sustain. Yet their stories continue to capture our imagination, perhaps because they represent a form of freedom and adventure that seems impossible in our modern, regulated world, even as we recognize the brutal realities that lay beneath the romantic surface. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the forgotten corners of pirate history. I hope these stories have provided you with both relaxation and insight into a fascinating period of our maritime past. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. What other historical topics would you like us to explore together? Your suggestions and support help shape our community's ongoing journey through history's most intriguing stories. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with peaceful adventures and your rest be deep and restorative. Good night, and thank you for being part of our growing community of history enthusiasts.